there before. It means threats. It means death threats. It means retribution against your family.
Every other day you hear something crazy with The View. Something pops off. People just losing their mind. There's so much controversy. Let me see what happened today. Because I heard they were going crazy because the MSNBC host went down and met with Trump in Mar-a-Lago. So let's see what they got to say on The View. Ladies. Oh! Whoopi almost fell. They cut that camera. They cut away so quick.
I don't know what I tripped over. I tripped over something.
Trying to dodge Anna. I ran into a tree, then hit Anna, then went down with you. It was like bowling pins.
It was crazy. I was
and
like,
all that negative controversy she's involved in, the karma probably almost got her. The bakery story. I mean, Whoopi, what's going on with you? Check out one of my shorts. I talk about Whoopi and what happened with her comment about the working class.
and I thought,
you happy?
Here I go. So I'm steady on my feet now.
All right.
So Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski have spent a long time warning about you-know-who poses a dangerous threat to the future of democracy. So this morning they surprised a lot of viewers when they talked about how they spent the weekend. Take a look.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't.
Right off the bat, people are like, are you kidding me? As nasty as they are to Trump, and then they go down to Mar-a-Lago to talk to him. I'm surprised he actually let them come down there. But let's see. Let's see how this goes. That must have been an interesting conversation.
On a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. For nearly 80 million Americans, election denialism, public trials, and January 6th were not as important as the issues that moved them to send Donald Trump back to the White House with their vote. Joe and I realize it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
So is this the approach that is going to work with a gentleman who campaigned on calling the media the enemy of the people?
So I actually think it was the right thing to do. And I've heard a lot of folks on the left coming after Joe and Mika saying, don't normalize him. Well, 75 million plus American voters normalized Donald Trump by making him President-elect Donald Trump. In this notion that if sort of the...
That's a great point. You can't normalize him, right? The normal people are the majority of the United States that voted for him. So it's funny how now the minority is trying to make the majority feel like they're not the majority voice of the United States. It's interesting, right? So let's see.
Resistance who opposes him stayed in their safe bubbles, sat on their hands, and just complained about him for 4 years, that would have a bigger impact than sitting down. I talked to Mika, actually. They met with him for over 90 minutes. They raised very valid concerns. They both see themselves as opinion journalists who want to actually be able to engage the person that they talk about every day, actually be able to raise issues with them when they're concerned. And in the same way that I thought it was right for Joe Biden.
And here's the thing, we're hearing a lot of talk about media, some of these organizations that are going to be going down, right? I think I've heard rumor already that one of these organizations, maybe MSNBC, that's going to be up for sale. And so if you have nothing to talk about, right, if they can't go in there and be able to talk to the president, they don't have a good relationship with the president of the United States, then what are they going to be reporting on? Like, we really can't take their position really seriously, right? Because they never really got to sit down or get to sit down and have a conversation with him to really understand his perspective. And it's always going to be what he considers to be fake news. So you can't really trust it because it's always going to come from a biased perspective. So I think it was strategic on MSNBC's part to really send them in there to rebuild that relationship with him in order for them to be able to survive. Because if they can't really report or have conversations with him, what happens? They're going to lose viewership. And we've already seen that already happening across all these liberal organizations, media organizations, since the election. So there's going to be a lot of organizations that are going to be going away pretty soon. Watch the collapse happen, right? And they talked about that mainstream media kind of going away, or at least losing the level of influence that it had, and then losing it to the people, like Joe Rogan and regular people that make content, like YouTubers like myself.
Biden to meet with him, and that I think it's right for presidents to meet with foreign adversaries to try to find diplomatic relations and ways to bring people together and solve problems. This is absolutely the right thing. I would sit down with Donald Trump. I would interview Donald Trump. And I'll go a step further. I hope good people work for him. We need to stop demonizing people because they supported a man who just became president of the United States. We should hope good people are around him and smart journalists are challenging him.
Well, look, there is a sobering reality, right? Which is that we have, in 2016, I think people voted for the unknown and voted thinking maybe the gravitas of the office was going to change him. It didn't. In 2024, people voted knowing who he was. And nothing that he is doing, as concerning as I find it and disturbing as I find it, should be shocking, because he told us he was going to do these things. Yeah. He was surrounded by the people he's appointing, and he is keeping to his word, and people voted for him knowing that. And so it's hard. It's a sobering truth. It's hard to reconcile that with what we have been doing for the last 8 years. I will never.
It's funny because, we got what we voted for, right? When we were under the Trump administration, right? We had peace. We didn't have war. We had a stable economy, a growing economy. Some may say that by the end of his administration, yes, we went into COVID. And I remember him saying, I don't want to close down the businesses. I don't want to close down the businesses. And they forced him to close it down, shut down businesses, and make people stay, at home because of the virus. But it wasn't something that he wanted to do because he knew the impact that it would have on the economy.
Back to work. We don't have a country where they say, hey, let's close it down for 2 years. We can't do that. It's not our country.
Economy. So then when you hear people say, oh, the economy was so bad and he handed over a bad economy, you guys forced him into that. But for the most part, the people that voted for him knew that those are things that were out of his control. It's like a hurricane coming through and you can't really do anything about this natural disaster.
I'm going to have to make the decision because I don't think I'm ever going to get invited. And listen, the truth of the matter is, as we know around this table, that it is hard to criticize and denounce the abuses of power by Donald Trump when he is president. We have been there before. Mm-hmm. It means threats. It means death threats. It means retribution against your family. It means crazy things showing up at your house. It means lawsuits. It means all sorts of things. We've done it before, and if we have to do it again, we will do so again. I think there's a lot of people who are probably looking at what Joe and Mika did and find it opportunistic. There are people who change their stripes, or maybe their spots, I should say, today, depending on who is in power and what benefits them. I don't know that that's what they are doing. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's a to-be-determined situation, because right now it's the transition. Mm-hmm. We don't know what he's going to do as president. We don't know what they're going to do if he commits abuses of power as president. So, everybody has to live with their...
What kind of annoys me is that the media always talks about everything, the fear that they try to push on the American people is really from their perspective about the fear that they feel the backlash is going to come towards them. But they try to push that on the people. She was talking about death threats. I find that hard to believe that during his last administration that there were death threats against her and her family. Come on. Really? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? You really don't know. But to say that we don't know what the administration is going to do, he's going to be coming after his political opponents. The American people don't really care about that. They want to be able to put groceries on their table. They want gas prices to go down. They want to be able to find a job after being out of a job in this administration for a year and a half, after applying to 1,000 jobs on LinkedIn. These are the problems that people have, and these people did not listen to their concerns, right? It was morality, but morality doesn't put food on the table. It doesn't help you at home to survive and thrive in this world. So, if you can't survive, there's no conversation about moral values. People already think that all of them are immoral, but who has the best plan for the American people? And I think that's the biggest concern, not about if he's going to come after you because you were talking shit about him on your show. Crazy.
Their decision. Everybody has to look at themselves in the mirror. I'm good.
I absolutely think it was the right decision, and I think it's good that they work on MSNBC. I don't want only Fox people going to see them. That was some of the problem here that I think everyone can agree, maybe even people that voted for Trump can agree, that the things they're watching on Fox are wrong. That's the only network that's had to pay billions of dollars because they got it wrong. So I don't want only Fox people sitting down with him. I want everyone. I don't need to know their motivation. I just know you get nowhere in silence. Conversation.
Yeah, and I agree with that, right? You definitely want to have an unbiased perspective, if possible, right? You definitely, you need a Fox, you need an MSNBC. You want to hear different perspectives, right? If we're just hearing from one side, things become biased. And I think that's why people are really concerned about the media, because they feel like the media is definitely leans towards the left, right? And we really don't get that balanced perspective that we need. And that's why you keep hearing, if you watch news, especially if you leverage YouTube, and you listen to news all around the world or all around the country, people say the same thing, the different news stations, and they say the same lines. It's like, come on, like, how can we even trust you if you guys are saying the same lines? Like, somebody is feeding you that information, and we can't really trust you. You're like robots.
Had to be had. I also don't believe in, like, we don't platform or we don't do these things. I feel like those are very pie in the sky. If you're not having conversations and winning on ideas, you're not moving anywhere. So to me, this is what the country decided. He's not calling me, but if
he's not calling me either, to be clear.
He doesn't know who I am.
Exactly.
But if he did, I would absolutely.
That's a good thing.
I would absolutely sit down and always have a conversation, because
Going back to my point, he's not calling you. He doesn't know who you are. So for the other lady to sit there and say, "Oh, the people getting death threats," they're like, "What are you talking about?" He doesn't even know who you are. He's seen you talking shit, but like, who are you? Like, why would I even waste my time to try to send somebody to get you for what? Please. All right, let's see what Sonny gonna say something crazy. Let me see.
I'm not afraid. You have the conversations or nothing happens.
Here we go.
Are you talking?
Well,
Of course.
Look, the bottom line is that America needs a free press that is willing to speak truth to power right now, more than ever. And I think that we have to be very clear-eyed when we think about the president-elect and cover the president-elect. And I don't think you need to sit down for 90 minutes at Mar-a-Lago and kiss his ring to be able to speak truth and to be able to cover a story. So maybe they're not journalists in the true sense. Maybe they're saying that they're opinion journalists.
See, I don't like that, right? I feel like it's very childish for her to come out there and say that. A lot of the things I feel that she says are really sophomore. For someone to be so educated, so intelligent, high income earner, you would think that these people have a sound mind, but it really comes off to be a little mentally disturbed. Now, if you want to be able to, just like any relationship, right? If you don't have a good relationship with someone, you can't even think clearly. Everyone knows when emotion gets involved, then people don't think clearly. If they have a good relationship, a solid relationship with the president, at least a better one than they had, because they hadn't talked to him for 7 years. He's coming in. We need to kind of have a diplomatic conversation when we come to the table and talk to you. Then you can kind of think clearly and make sure that at least what you're writing or really reporting a story on is unbiased. At least lean a little bit more to the center, right? But if you're already coming in angry, and we've seen this with the black journalists, immediately just coming in and attacking, I can't, as a viewer, really trust your perspective because you already come in as the enemy. So you're never going to give us anything that's really unbiased. It's always going to be from your biased mind because you're coming in with negativity. So I don't like that. And, that's why the American people voted the way they did.
But we have to remember that Trump is the guy who ushered in the era of fake news. He is the guy who ushered in alternative facts. He is the guy who attacked 3 black female journalists. He's the guy that revoked Jim Acosta's press credentials for asking him a question. And so I think that this president-elect, I hate to say it, would like nothing more than to have only Fox News cover him, would like nothing more than a state-sponsored media. And I don't think he can be trusted in the way that other presidents can be trusted. This is an
And it's funny that she says other presidents can be trusted. Who's to say that other presidents were trusted? By who? By you? Right? So most people don't, I would say a lot of people don't necessarily trust government, politicians, regardless. And I think, again, that's one of the reasons that he came in and was different. And he didn't usher this in. He kind of exposed fake news, fake media. It's not really fake, but it's definitely a spin. Even some of the things that she said. I saw, it's funny, my wife was showing me a video yesterday about Acosta, and I saw how disrespectful he was to Trump a few years ago. So he probably deserved to get, his privileges revoked.
Mr. President, and I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to try to keep... I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
Right. But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian
investigation
because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
And the journalist that she's referring to, that, I felt like they treated him badly. I'm not sure exactly who she's talking about, but that's the trick with the media. They can just say things and people appeal to authority and they just listen to them without doing any fact checking on their own.